Good evening, and thank you all for coming this evening. Welcome to the 2022 Dare County Board of Education Candidate Forum, sponsored by the Dare County League of Women Voters. I am Lorelei DiBernardo, and I am the coordinator for this forum. I want to thank all of you for showing interest in your local school board. That's phenomenal. And especially I want to thank the candidates for participating this evening. That's important. The League of Women Voters is celebrating its 102nd birthday this year. And I am really pleased to continue the tradition of bringing voters and candidates together in this way. I'm now going to introduce the moderator for this candidate forum, Marcy Reese, my friend.
I'm a member of the League of Women Voters of Dare County, and I live in Southern Shores. The League is a nonprofit, nonpartisan political organization. It encourages informed and active participation in all levels of government. It works to increase understanding of major public policy issues and influences public policy through education and advocacy. The League maintains a nonpartisan policy. It neither endorses nor opposes any political party or candidate. The League participates in the Positive Campaign Project and has requested that each candidate tonight take the Code of Campaign Ethics pledge. We prohibit campaigning or campaign literature in the forum room. All cell phones and electronic devices should be turned off, and texting is prohibited. Our League members participating today are the greeters, who will also retrieve question cards from you, the audience, Carol Butcher and Marion Midget. We have question reviewers, Nancy Birondelli, Deb Helber, and Glenda Keel. And we have a timekeeper, the all-important timekeeper, Ginger Walters, right here. We encourage a lively and respectful discussion. If you think of a question during the forum, please raise your hand, and one of our staff will hand you a question card. There are 3 Board of Education seats up for election, and there are 5 candidates on your ballot. Present this evening are Jessica Ferns for the Board of Education, District 2. Ron Payne for the Board of Education, also District 2. Matt Brower, candidate for the Board of Education, District 3. And Marie C. Russell, candidate for the Board of Education, District 3. The format for the forum is as follows. Each candidate will have 3 minutes for an opening statement. The timekeeper will signal when the candidate has 30 seconds remaining. The timekeeper will stand if the candidate continues past the allotted time. Next, candidates will respond to questions from the audience. Questions were either submitted prior to the forum by voters, or they can be submitted during the forum. They are signed with the town of residence. League reviewers review questions for clarity and to avoid duplication. We believe this procedure affords the greatest variety of subjects to be covered in the allotted time. I will read the question as written and identify the submitter. The League advocates positive campaign practices, and we reserve the right to omit any question that is viewed as a personal attack or unrelated to campaign issues. Questions can be addressed to a specific candidate or to all the candidates. Questions directed to a specific candidate may be answered by any candidate if desired. 2 minutes is allotted for responses. The timer will signal the candidate when 30 seconds remain, and stand if the candidate goes over the time allotted. Opportunities will not be extended to those who initially pass on a question. Finally, each candidate is entitled to a 2-minute closing statement. Before we started, the candidates drew numbers to establish the order for opening statements. We will reverse that order for closing statements. So, we will begin with the opening statements from the candidates. Mr. Payne.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. Thanks. This is a great crowd. Thank you for everybody coming out. My name is Ron Payne, candidate for School Board District 2. Real quickly, my family's from Stumpy Point. My granddad was a commercial fisherman, boat builder, postmaster. My dad was the first dentist in Manio. Couldn't make a go of it. Not enough teeth, I guess. And so he moved his practice to Norfolk, and that's where I grew up in Norfolk. But back and forth every summer to my grandparents' house in Stumpy Point. Love it. I was back there this past weekend again. A little bit about me, 23 years in education, 13 years as an administrator. Got a master's degree in educational leadership from George Washington University. Successful teacher, boys and girls basketball coach, department chair, assistant principal, and principal. Some things that I've accomplished along the way as an educational leader. I've been fortunate to have some mentors to help me along the way. Some great staff members that I've been able to lead throughout the years. First, as an assistant principal, I was able to speak at the Virginia Association of Secondary School Principals in 2005. My expertise is instructional strategies and classroom management, and more about that later. But in 2005, I was one of the keynote speakers for that group in the annual conference, speaking on instructional strategies, classroom management, how to control discipline in the classroom using instructional strategies. I was with the City of Richmond. Before I get to the City of Richmond, I've worked in several different school districts, affluent school districts, very rural school districts, urban school districts, and the City of Richmond is very urban. Most of my kids came from housing projects, tough home lives. Superintendent came to me and asked me to write the Dropout Prevention Initiative for the school district, which I did with no budget. That was a lot of fun. What we were doing is bringing students that had left the school district back. Could you pause me, please? Pause. Once again, I worked in several different school districts, affluent, rural, urban, mixed. And while I was in the City of Richmond, I wrote the Dropout Prevention Initiative. We brought students that have left school, dropped out, back into the classroom to get their high school diploma. The first year, we had 87 graduates, which was a tremendous amount of students coming back. The second year, we had 123 graduates. Also, while in the City of Richmond, all first-year teachers to the City of Richmond schools had to go through my professional development on how to teach, work with kids from the urban situation. That was a quick 30 seconds. Wow, that went by fast. As principal, as administrator of the year in Elizabeth City at Northeastern High School, increased graduation rates from 88 to just under 95%, had one of the lowest dropout rates in the state at 0.24%. Recognition by state superintendent for increased AP scores. I have to stop.
Okay, thank you.
3 minutes.
Ms. Ferns.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Yeah, is this working? Okay. My name is Jessica Ferns, and I'm running for the District 2 seat. I'm no politician, so this campaigning and forum is very new to me, so excuse my abundance of nerves. I hope that through the nerves, I show my genuine desire to serve. Here they come. I would like to thank the League of Women Voters for putting this event on. It is important for voters to be informed. One of my biggest fears with the upcoming election is that voters will vote straight ticket without taking the time to truly know the Board of Education candidates. This forum gives us the opportunity to get to know each other better, and for that I'm very thankful. I am running because I genuinely care about public education. I believe that providing children with equitable education in a not very equitable society is invaluable. Giving everyone the same opportunity to learn and grow and become productive members of society is important to me. I am running because I love Dare County and I love Dare County schools. As former president and board member of Outer Banks Mommy and Me, current First Flight Elementary School PTO membership chair, a member of DARE Education Foundation, serving on the outreach committee, active substitute teacher, involved community member, and engaged parent, my connections in the schools and our society would make me a successful candidate. I have come here as a concerned and invested mom who wants the best out of our schools for my daughter and her peers. I come here as a friend and an advocate for teachers who wants them to not only thrive at, but truly love their jobs. I come here as a member of our beloved community who wants our children and our schools at number one. I strongly believe that the Board of Education has no room for polarizing politics. I don't believe in using our children, their education, or our schools as a political platform. I am ready to serve the board and our community with integrity. I am ready to lead with an open mind. I am ready to listen to all sides and find our common grounds. We all want the same thing, for Dare County schools to be the best schools, for the children of our community to be given the best education and become the most successful versions of themselves.
Thank you. Mr. Bauer?
Hi, my name is Matt Brower. I'm running for Dare County Schools, obviously. I'd like to thank the Dare County League of Women Voters for hosting this forum.
Okay.
A little bit about myself. I'm a small business owner in Dare County. I'm the father of 4 children enrolled in Dare County schools, from grade school, middle school, and high school. I hold a degree in economics from Xavier University and a degree in construction management from the University of Cincinnati. Prior to moving with my family to the Outer Banks 9 years ago, I had a successful career in construction management with 2 very large general contractors in Ohio and Pennsylvania. I successfully managed complex civil infrastructure projects and budgets worth tens of millions of dollars. At various times, I had hundreds of employees under my management. In 2013, my wife Liz and I moved with our children to the Outer Banks when we purchased Beach Painting Contractors, which was already an established, successful business. Under my stewardship, the company's annual revenues doubled within 5 years. In 2016, I started Beach Construction Group, a licensed residential contractor whose work complements what we do at Beach Painting. I understand the local economy, and I have some knowledge of what it takes to hire and retain people on the Outer Banks. I believe that the current school board lost some credibility over the last 2 years. We've lost good educators, we have low test scores throughout the schools, and right now we need a superintendent. I believe we need to restore the confidence in the schools, and that begins with effective communication and transparency from the board. I'm glad to see the new board, or the current board, moving in that direction. It is imperative that we recoup the learning losses that were incurred during COVID. I hope to be part of a new school board that accomplishes this while listening to parents and fostering a good work environment for teachers and staff. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Russell?
Hi, everyone. Hello, and thank you to the League of Women Voters for hosting this forum. My name is Marie Russell, and I am running for Board of Education District 3, Kitty Hawk, Southern Shores, and Duck. Thank you for the opportunity to introduce myself and how I believe I would be the best candidate for this position. I've been a resident of the Outer Banks for over 20 years and have held several board positions within the community, including being president of the parent-teacher organization at First Light Middle School, board member of the Outer Banks Wedding Association, and board member of the Outer Banks Children at Play, which created the very first children's museum for the Outer Banks. I like to spend my free time helping out the schools by being a substitute teacher for K-12 at Dare County Schools, which allows me to see firsthand how our system is running and what might need improvements. I'm also a parent of 3 children who currently attend 9th, 3rd, and 2nd grades in the Dare County school system, which is extremely important as well, because representation matters. And having current educators and parents on the school board should be paramount, as currently there isn't even one on the current Board of Education. Teachers are our backbone for our school system, and they need as much support as possible. We need to listen to their needs and need to make sure that they are well taken care of in order to retain them. I'm thankful that the Board of Commissioners have now put a plan into place in order to help the housing crisis, which will hopefully benefit the teachers, but we need to have a plan in place for what is happening now, not in 2 years. We need to address the needs of the teachers first, which are a living wage that is comparable to the Outer Banks cost of living and/or an increase in the current housing stipend. Our biggest issues with teacher retention are solvable, and I'm willing to help lead the charge. With a new superintendent being added into the Dare County school system as early as December, I would like to make sure that we have open communication between central office and parents. This is key to having a great relationship between all involved. And lastly, the role of the Board of Education in Dare County is to empower every student to be an innovative problem solver and engaged global citizen. I believe I can be a great advocate for all students and parents, not just some based on personal political party lines, as that is the most important part of the job, not being biased or using personal party beliefs to manage the board. This is why I'm running as an independent, non-affiliated candidate to represent all. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Now we will have questions from the voting public and the audience. For the candidates, I will call on each of you in staggered order to ensure impartiality. So here's the first question. This is a league question. What do you see as the most pressing issue facing Dare County schools, and how would you approach this issue if elected? Ms. Ferns.
I would say that the most pressing issue right now is teacher morale and retention. We have to figure out some creative ways to make the education field more desirable. I have some ideas, and I would like to see some of them be implemented. Obviously, I know everyone wants their paychecks to be padded, and that would be really great, and I'm all for higher pay for teachers, but Mr. Twitty talked about how the Board of Education loaded up in a van years ago and went to Raleigh and lobbied for a teacher salary increase. And I want to be a part of a board that does that on a regular basis, so they don't forget about us 2 years down the road, because we're there all the time. They are so tired of seeing Dare County Board of Education members in their faces that they're going to pay our teachers better. Dare County has a ton of money, and we need to come off of it more for our public educators. They need more support staff, we need more teachers, and then I think our facilities are starting to get a little tight, so that would be my second pressing issue. But on top of the line, everybody's gonna say it after me, I'm sure, is we've gotta find a way to make our teachers stick around and teach here in Dare County when other counties are more appealing, here is more expensive. It's a no-brainer. Why wouldn't you go where the money is at? The beach isn't just enough anymore. So we've got to come up with some creative ideas, 401k matching, better healthcare benefits, just treating them like the local heroes that they are when they walk into a coffee shop, letting them cut you in the line. Things like that to just boost morale and treat them the way that they deserve to be treated.
Mr. Payne.
I'm going to agree with housing. We live in a very affluent area, and housing's been an issue. I'm glad that the commissioners are starting to look at that. We need to speed that up. One thing that really got me going the past few days is, and I hate to call them out, the town of Nags Head. They decided to put a moratorium on the workforce housing, but they're going to go ahead and build a 90-room hotel. We need to take a look at our public workers that actually work and live here, and yes, concentrate on our tourists, because that's put dollars in our pockets, but we really need to take a look at housing and make that happen quicker. I want to agree with Jennifer rather than later. The other thing is academic and student achievement. The last 2 years, 2.5 years, COVID's really hit our students hard. As much as I love being in schools and have been in schools, I'm kind of glad I wasn't, because it's the most difficult year our teachers, our administrators, parents, everybody's had. But we need to really look at academic achievement. How are we going to bring these students forward? Because they've lost almost 2 years. And I hope with our new superintendent, the board has asked that candidate or candidates if they have a plan to increase our student achievement and catch our students back up, because that's very, very important. As a former high school principal, university instructor, it's all about academic and student achievement. And preparing our kids, starting in kindergarten through 12th grade, getting them ready for college, trade school, work, entrepreneurship, whatever. But we've lost 2 years, and we need to catch all these students up. And once again, I hope our board has chosen a new superintendent that has a plan to increase student and academic achievement.
Mr. Brower.
I'd have to agree with Jessica and with Ron. The teacher pay and housing is certainly a priority. You know, the problem is that the majority of teachers' pay is set by the state. I mean, we're able to supplement income, but if you look across, the counties and the average supplement for a teacher is like $4,900, $4,800, something like that. You look at where Dare County ranks in there amongst the other states. They're right there in the middle of the pack. Housing costs here are exorbitant. We all know that. And I can't see how anybody making $45,000 a year is going to be encouraged to come to a work situation where the average house costs $390,000. I think we can do a little bit better with that, and that's certainly something for the Board of Commissioners to take a look at, and I would certainly support that. As far as the housing costs and supporting teacher housing, we've seen some success. We've seen some things that work here. We've seen, the Board of Commissioners in SECU actually develop some teacher housing, but it's not very much. I mean, those are two examples of very successful projects, and I think we need to do a lot more. I would work with anyone on the board to see if we can make that happen or make sure that we make that happen.
Ms. Russell.
Well, it seems like we all agree, which is great. All roads lead to teachers. That's our pressing issue. Retaining our teachers. Retaining the teachers that we already have here, that already live here, that already can afford to be here, are still leaving. Why? We need to figure out what's going on with that. How do we keep them? Then the second step, how do we get teachers to move here? Very important, housing, pay, whatever it might be, we need to discuss that. We need to figure out how to make the commissioners supplement their incomes more. And housing, which, if it be a stipend for current teachers or for new teachers or housing incoming teachers, it's the most important part. If we want to be great school system, teachers are what we need. And we need good ones, and we don't need them to leave. So those are my priorities.
So the next question comes from Heidi Hess from Killdevil Hills. North Carolina is one of the lowest 10 states in the country when it comes to teachers' salaries. What would you do as a board member to ensure Dare County is compensating our existing teachers appropriately and attracting top talent from across the country? Ms. Russell.
Well, I feel like a lot of the questions are probably going to be about the same thing. But compensating salary, attracting top talent, it really comes down to the competitive market right now with all teachers all over the United States. It's not just Dare County, it's everywhere. So what are we going to do in Dare County to attract teachers? I think the most important thing would be having great test scores, as well as great housing, as great opportunities, having teacher support as well to be able to speak to other teachers and have the teachers say, this is a great place to live. Our principals are great, our superintendent listens to us, they meet with us every week, we have a lunch once a month, open communication, central office really supports us. I think it's really, really important for teachers to be supported that way, and for new teachers to come in, that is paramount. And attracting top talent, I think that's what we need to do.
Mr. Brower.
I think we're probably all in agreement with a lot of this, and some of this was answered in the previous question. But getting back to the idea of supplemental pay and just how woefully inadequate it is in Dare County, the supplemental pay in Rocky Mount schools is actually $300 more average per year than it is here in Dare County. The average house in Rocky Mount costs $160,000 versus what we know property values are here in Dare County. I think the area sells itself, but you have to be able to afford living here. And certainly, teachers are driven more as a sense of vocation, I think, than pay. You still have to be able to make a living. People don't get into this line of work to make a ton of money. It is a vocation. And I think when you've got 50% proficiency, 60% proficiency in the test scores, that's a lot of work to do. I think if you've got one of the top school systems, you will bring people here. If you have an environment that is, has a supportive central office, a supportive board, it's going to go a long way for bringing people in and also for retaining people.
Mr. Payne.
Teachers are leaving. Why are they leaving? We don't have a real good exit interview plan. If a teacher's leaving, why? Tell us the real reason why you're leaving. We need to know that. And sometimes teachers don't want to give that to their immediate supervisor for fear of backlash, or they won't get a good recommendation going somewhere else. So I think a third party might be a good idea to be able to talk to these individuals that are leaving and to get a good exit interview in. We can attract the best and the brightest. In my research, Dare County's been ranked, from what I've seen, anywhere from number 2 in the state to number 13 in the state. I'm competitive. I want to be number 1. But how do we do that? To get the best and the brightest in. It goes back to housing. Matt said it. I mean, almost $400,000 to get a house that's not much here in Dare County. So the housing issues is, if we can find, if we can cure that problem, we will get the best and the brightest in, and they'll stay. As a high school principal, I didn't have any problem recruiting great teachers to Elizabeth City, and my scores and everything show it. But this is the place. This is the best place on earth to live, in my opinion, and I think a lot of other people would say that if they came and they could afford to live here. So once again, housing is a big issue.
Ms. Ferns.
Thanks. I think that we need to be more pressing on a state level to town commissioners about padding that supplement, like others have said. But outside of housing, we have quality teachers that have housing that live here right now that we can't retain in our county. So we do need housing to recruit new teachers, because new college graduates need affordable places to live. But there's also a huge population of teachers that are happy with their housing situation, they're happy with their income or maybe their spouse's income. They're living all right, but it's the climate in the school environment. We need more support staff. We need more staff in the school so we can lower the size of classrooms so they're smaller, so that teaching is more enjoyable. Teachers want to be in their classrooms because they enjoy their class sizes. They're not bogged down, overwhelmed by how many students they have or how many tedious tasks are being trickled down to them. If there was more support staff, they could knock some of these things off of the checklist so that teachers could teach their small classes and our kids could get the education that they deserve. So I think we need to improve the climate in our schools right now so that teachers have some weight lifted off of their shoulders.
Thank you. So for the next question, can we get a card over here? Yeah, okay, thank you. The next question is from Rosemary Rollins, who writes, as an author, I'm concerned about book banning. Do you support banning any book, and what criteria would you use to decide that a book should be banned? Mr. Payne.
I think there's a policy already in place in regards to that. And I think if that's to happen, we need to follow the policy. Maybe take a look at the policy, doesn't need updating, changing, but we have a policy on that. I think parents around the country are taking more of a stake in their child's education, which is good. I've been in part of schools where I couldn't get a parent to come to the school.
Okay.
Hey, there's 100 people here tonight. Thank you for coming, because you want to be involved in your child's education. So I think setting the policy, following the policy, So it's black and white. This is the reason why, and we're just following a policy that's been set by the board.
Ms. Ferns?
Ron is correct. There is a policy in place by the board right now that exists. And to my understanding, it's a pretty stringent policy to get a book off the shelf. If it is followed, it has to go through a level of checks and balances before it even becomes presented to the board as a book up for banning. So I do think that we need to not override, as has happened in the past, those policies and procedures and just remove books as we maybe feel fit. That's not our job as a board member, to just bypass the policies in place. So I think that Ron is correct. We need to follow the policies in place and address each situation as it arises. I also think that parents should be involved in their children's education, and I agree with Ron in that, trying to word this correctly, but and that parents should have an involvement, but other parents should get to have an involvement in my child's reading and what they are exposed to. So removing a book from the library takes the book from every child, where you should, as a parent, get to decide whether or not your kid reads that. But again, there's a policy that the board is required to follow, so my opinion really is irrelevant to the policy.
Ms. Russell?
Same. There is a policy. We have to follow it. It has been kind of, not totally followed recently, but I certainly hope that if I were on the board, I'd be able to review it and see what the steps are until it gets to the board. But the real question was, would I ever ban a book, correct?
Do you support banning any book, and what criteria would you use to decide a book should be banned?
Right, so that's more of the question. But again, the board is not supposed to make that decision. It comes up to them for the final decision, but it goes through so many different levels before it even gets there. So it's a case-by-case basis for something like that.
Mr. Brower?
I think I concur with everybody else here. The board certainly has the responsibility to set procedures and policies. And if it's something that you start seeing parents complain a lot about books that they're finding in the libraries and whatnot, then maybe you revisit that policy and see if it can be fine-tuned. You hear a lot of things all over the state, and you hear it in other school districts about, inappropriate material. I think we can all agree we don't want inappropriate, material for young people especially. But, the policies are there, and to my mind, from what I know, they are working.
So the next question is from Earl Keel from Southern Shores. Do you consider critical race theory as an appropriate topic for Dare County education? In your opinion, what would you consider objectionable about this topic? Mr. Brower.
Wow. I don't know that I've seen anything of it in our schools. Critical race ideology, whatever you want to call it, critical race theory, I don't think it really belongs in schools. It's not our job to teach children, that certain people are inherently evil, or that certain people can't achieve because of past transgressions by others. We need to be focusing on teaching kids to read and to write and to do math and science. I don't think that critical race theory really falls into play with any of that. And as I said, I haven't seen any indication of critical race theory in our schools.
Ms. Russell.
So I have a quote here from the NCDPI. Critical race theory is not included in the state board's approved social studies standards, nor is it supported by the North Carolina Department of Public Instruction. It's pretty clear. It's not in Dare County. It's not in North Carolina school system. So it's not something that I'm too concerned about. As a substitute teacher, I'm in the schools. I see what teachers are teaching. I follow a lesson plan. They hardly have time to use the bathroom, let alone trying to indoctrinate kids with this. But again, it's not even in the curriculum. So I know it's a big buzzword. When I was getting my 1,600 signatures to get onto this ballot, it was definitely a hot topic that everyone was curious about or asking about because it was in the media. And I kept trying to explain to them, trust me, it's not in our system. It's not in Dare County, so it's not something that really need to be worrying about.
Ms. Ferns.
What Marie said. No, but really, it's not being taught in Dare County schools, so it really is a non-issue as far as our county curriculum. But on a personal level, I believe that these polarizing issues are being used to further divide us apart. And that is why I'm running, because I do not want polarizing politics on our school board. These buzzwords that get everybody all fired up and against each other have no place in Dare County. Dare County is a unique community where people can come together and find common ground. We have got to turn off our televisions and worry about the kids here in Dare County, and that's what I plan to do. CRT is being used to divide us apart, and I do not like that. I think that it is irrelevant to our county, and we need to focus on the things that we all say are the pressing issues, because nobody is up here saying the pressing issue is SEL or CRT.
Mr. Payne.
CRT, absolutely not. It has no place in the schools. The basic mission of education is reading, writing, arithmetic, old school. And once again, I talked about student achievement earlier. We're behind with our kids in student achievement, so there's no time for that. Once again, I want to agree with Jessica, excuse me. We need to turn our TVs off. I mean, there's so much polarizing junk on TV all over the place, but I am not for CRT. I would not, if I'm on the board and something comes up, I'm going to vote it out. We need to concentrate on academic achievement, reading, writing, and arithmetic. There's a professor, Patrick Winston from MIT. He speaks, for student success, you need to be able to speak effectively, write effectively, the quality of your ideas, critical thinking skills. The people you associate with is going to help with your success, and what you read and how much you read. That's what we need to be concentrating on. Elementary school, math and reading. Big concentration on that. There's no room for anything else but academics. And that's coming from somebody who's been an administrator at the elementary level, middle school level, and high school level. We have to focus on academic and student achievement.
So the next question comes from Glenn Tolbert from Kill Devil Hills. Do you favor that the Dare County School Board remain partisan, and why? Ms. Ferns.
I think I've made that pretty clear. I do not support a partisan Board of Education. I think that I think some of the correlations in the county that we have seen with the digression of progress and some of the graphs that we've seen at Board of Education meetings presented about teacher retention and morale and exit is a direct correlation with our Board of Education becoming partisan. We have got to vote on our Board of Education members based on the people that they are and how they will serve our public education system. It hasn't been like this for long. We're one of 9 counties in the state that has a partisan Board of Education, and it's not something that I would be able to change as a member of Board of Education, but I definitely think that it should be changed.
Mr. Payne.
I think it comes down to the message of the individual running for the particular office. Do you agree with them or do you not agree with them? Do you like what they're saying? Do you not like what they're saying? Whether it's Republican, Democrat, Independent, or whatever. Hopefully you like my message or Jessica's or whomever, but I think it boils down to not so much partisan, but what is the message and how will you take your message and move forward and get the results that you're seeking to get. I'm results oriented. I've always been. I'm going to tell you exactly what I'm going to try and do. So I think it comes down to your individual message, and if that's the person you like, go ahead and vote for him.
Mr. Brower.
I think all politics is local. I don't see where it makes much of a difference which party you're aligned with when you're running for school board. I think perhaps it maybe gives some insight into a person's political ideology, but apart from that, everybody's looking at the same set of problems and determining what they want to do, or they're trying to get the message out, is what they will do to address those problems. So I don't really think it makes a difference, I guess is what I'm getting at.
Ms. Russell.
I absolutely do not think that it should be partisan. It never was until recently, although I do question Mr. Brower. Oh, is that me? Sorry. I do question Mr. Brower because of definitely touting more of a conservative choice. I am an independent. I am running as an independent, always have been an independent. I'm not a registered Democrat or a Republican. That's why I was willing to get out there and get 1,600. I only needed 1,200 signatures, but we got 1,600 signatures. And the conversations that I was having with everybody, they could not believe, well, firstly, that there was not a parent on the board. But secondly, that there wasn't an educator on the board. And thirdly, that it was partisan. That they were really surprised that that was even a part of this. So I do not think that it should be partisan at all. I feel that we should actually go to the state again, because I know that they already did go to the state to ask them to rescind it. It was denied, but I think we should try it again, because I think this is a tight-knit community, and we really do not need to be worrying about partisan politics for our kids.
So the next question is from Laura Singletary from Kill Devil Hills. Please describe how Dare County schools are funded. What are the sources? Do you feel that the Dare County schools are adequately funded to provide a sound basic education for every child? Ms. Russell.
Well, until I'm actually on the board, I really don't know as much as I wish I did know. Watching the budget meetings, I know how teachers are paid. I know that the state provides most of our funding. The commissioners also help supplement teachers' pay. Are we adequately funded? Absolutely not. We have a lot to work on. Until I'm in there, it'll be really difficult for me to throw out numbers or to be able to say exactly how we are funded. But I'm certainly interested in seeing what the numbers are and seeing how we can supplement our teachers.
Mr. Brower.
Yeah, 11% of our school funding comes from the federal government, 65% comes from Raleigh, and the balance is here in Dare County. As Marie said, we do rely on the Board of Commissioners, and the Board of Commissioners is what sets our budget for the school board. The school board recommends a budget and does the homework and presents that. I can't tell you if the schools are adequately funded or not. My gut feeling says no.
Mr. Payne.
I'm not sure if they're adequately funded or not because I'm not in the schools and looking at the budget, but I'll go with Matt. It's a complicated structure from federal government, state, and local, and it can get complicated. I'll say sometimes you need more money, sometimes you don't. When I took over principalship at Northeastern High School, I took over in January. We were 13 grand in the hole with athletics. I implemented some strategies. A year later, we're 30,000. I did it with no money. When I took over the school, there's X amount of dollars in our general fund. When I left, and all of our data was so much better, I had more money in my general fund. I didn't use it. I didn't need to because I implemented strategies that worked. Having worked in several, like I said earlier, several different school districts, I've learned a lot at each step of the way. I know what works in some school districts, what doesn't work in some school districts. So I think until you actually get in and start looking at the budget, I can't say for sure whether we're underfunded or not. But there are strategies that can be implemented at the building level to increase student achievement, and it doesn't cost a dime.
Ms. Ferns.
I'll just echo what the other candidates have said. The funding comes from a multitude of avenues, federal, state, and local. And I would like to have a better understanding to know if we're adequately funded or not. I'm sure some of it is allocation of money where, not that we don't have enough of a lump sum, but how are we utilizing those funds and how can they be dispersed differently to better, fulfill the needs of the money, I guess what I'm trying to say. But again, some of these things are things that until we're members of the board and actively working on the budget with the other board members, we don't really know. I did attend the budget meeting, and it looks like the current financial person does a really good job of trying to make it simple for board members to understand. So I look forward to learning about it more.
So the next question is from Olivia Sugg, who is from Kitty Hawk. How do you plan on educating and involving informed high school students in school board matters, as we are the ones being directly affected by your actions? And this is something that has not been done in the past. Mr. Payne.
I would ask you to read the question one more time for me, please.
Okay. How do you plan on educating and involving informed high school students in school board matters, as we are the ones being directly affected by your actions, and this is something that has not been done in the past?
Well, I think all students are affected by the board's actions, not just not in high school, but I think when you're in high school, as a former high school principal, you need to start talking about different things that you don't talk about in elementary school or middle school. The one thing I asked my students to do when they came in the 9th grade, I want you to start thinking about what you want to do when you grow up. I want you to have a plan for your life prior to you leaving high school, not graduate from high school and then start thinking about what to do. So have a plan. I encouraged our students to read the newspaper, to listen to the radio, understand politics, because politics, right or wrong, right or left, affects what we do in schools. So start reading a little bit more, get a little bit more knowledge about what's going on in the world. I encourage folks to come to school board meetings at my school. I encourage my teachers to come to school board meetings. I was at every single one of them, because you need to learn what goes on in the board meeting, how they work. Otherwise, you just don't know. So starting in high school, yes, we need to start talking about different things, because high school goes by fast. Once you hit 9th grade, in about 2 years, 2.5 years, the college application process starts. And when you start talking to mom and dads about that, they're like, woo, because 2.5 years ago, your child was sitting in a 6th grade class. So high school goes by fast, but you do need to start talking about different things than you do in middle school and high school. And I think politics, if you will, is one of them, because that's what runs the world. But they have to understand what's going on in the world that they're getting ready to take over from us.
Ms. Ferns.
I believe the question was about how we get high school students involved on our Board of Education. Okay, so I think meeting high schoolers where they are, they like social media, so advertising our board meetings via social media, meeting them in the high schools, letting them know when the meetings are, advertising more heavily on platforms that they're utilizing could get them more involved. Young people in politics in general, getting them involved is just about exposing them. So inviting them to meetings, having them attend, shadow a board member, maybe instituting some sort of program in the high school where you get paired up with a board member and you can get more involved. Get creative so that they get excited about what's going on. But I also want to commend the young student that wrote in a question for the panel this evening, because I commend that. Being interested in seeing a high school student write into a forum like that is really cool. So whoever you are, good job.
Thank you. Ms. Russell,
Yes, was that Olivia Suggs' question?
this is Olivia Sugg.
Yes, okay, I know her. So how to get them more involved? It's always interesting because, you know, there's definitely, as Jessica said, trying to get on their level. I have a 9th grader, so I do understand it's very difficult to get them involved, and we do make decisions for them. I remember meeting with Dr. Florence when I was substituting at Kitty Hawk Elementary School, and he mentioned to me to make sure to remember if I got onto the board that there is a hierarchy to it, that if students are really interested in wanting to know what's going on, they need to talk to the teachers, who talk to the principals, who then talk to the superintendent, who then talk to us. Although I think we should have a much better form of communication with them, I do feel like if they are affected by things that are happening, they need to communicate it with us as well, so that we know what's going on. And it's really based on communication. But I'd be very excited for anyone to get involved with Board of Education and whatever suggestions that they have.
Mr. Brower?
I certainly support kids going to school board meetings. I think kids learn from their parents. My oldest daughter, a little bit of heartburn about the fact that she had gone 2 weeks into the school year, 3 weeks into the school year without a Spanish teacher, and she asked if she could address the board. I said, yeah, I'll take you to the meeting, and you can do that. As it ends up, she ended up sick, and we did not attend the meeting, but she had the knowledge to know that that's how you address the board. You go to a meeting and you speak to the board members. I also think it's important for the board members going the other way to pay attention to what's going on in the schools. Reading the school newspapers will give you quite a bit of insight as to what the kids are thinking.
So our next question is from Gwen Taylor, who is from Manteo. Do you believe that topics such as racism, LGBTQ, sex education should or should not be taught in our schools? Mr. Brower.
Well, certainly, they need to be taught. I think American history needs to be taught from the perspective of, hey, this country has made some mistakes. It still is a land of opportunity. The LGBTQ issues, to the extent that that's part of health, education, I think that's important. Again, I would prefer to see the educational emphasis in our school buildings be math, English, science, and history. I don't want kids worrying about, using the correct pronouns. I don't think we need divisive politics of any kind in our schools. But I think we can present material. I'm not an educator, but I think we can present material that shows pros and cons and shows both sides of an issue.
Okay. Ms. Russell?
I think that's a really great question. I agree that we should try and keep it to the historical perspective of what happened in America as far as racism is concerned. Regarding LGBTQ, I feel like they should be okay to have a club at school. I don't think that it should be hidden. I don't have any issues with gender identity or gender fluidity. Everybody's pretty respectful. I remember when I substituted in the high school, I think it was the first day of school last semester, and everybody explained what their pronouns were. None of the kids cared. It wasn't an issue. They said, my pronoun is they, my pronoun is she, my pronoun is he. It didn't bother anybody. I think, again, that this idea of all of it is trying to separate us, polarize us. It's not something that the kids are worried about. We should not be worried about it. Should it be taught in schools? Yeah, it should be taught appropriately.
Ms. Ferns?
I agree that on an age-appropriate level, we should be teaching about racism and diversity in schools. I think that public schools should be an equitable, accepting, safe learning environment for everybody. doesn't matter who you are or where you come from. All of our students should feel safe and accepted at school.
Mr. Payne.
I'm an educator. I've probably said it too many times. I'm focused on catching our students up, reading, writing, arithmetic. We're behind. LGBTQ, there's clubs for that. And there's, as long as there's a faculty sponsor, the clubs are there. That's great. But as an educator, I want our students to be well-read, well-written, and just focus, once again, on student academic achievement.
So our next question is from Melissa Zahner, who's from Southern Shores. Our dual language immersion program here in Dare County offers students a chance to not only learn another language, but also learn about other countries and their cultures. How do you, as a Board of Education member, plan to nourish and grow our dual language immersion program so that more students can benefit? Ms. Ferns.
My daughter's in the DLI program, first grader at First Flight Elementary School, and I have nothing but raving reviews to give of the DLI program. Most of my peers that have kids enrolled in the program also have raving things to say about it. So I fully support the DLI program. I know that our very first class to experience DLI will be entering middle school next fall. And I think that it is now our responsibility to provide them with furthering the DLI program to extend into middle and high school. We can't just now have fluent fifth graders and then just say, here you are, enter middle school and take Spanish with your peers who you are way beyond knowledge-wise on, more fluent, I guess is the proper word. So I would like to see the program continue and develop into a middle school and high school program to support these kids all the way through. I'm super excited for my daughter to graduate high school bilingual. I think that the teachers that are coming over from their Spanish-speaking country, they genuinely love our kids and their jobs. They are totally into being educators at our schools. They're happy to be in Dare County. They love the environment and the community here. People that are in the program, I believe, have nothing but positive things to say about it. I can't imagine why anyone would want to take that away from our children. It's a great opportunity.
Mr. Payne.
I taught 1 year in middle school, which was interesting. The rest of my career was in high school, except for some elementary. The Wednesday before Thanksgiving, I had a class with 19 different nationalities in it. What do we do for 35 minutes? It's a half day. So I came up with a lesson plan. Let's talk about what everybody's going to cook for Thanksgiving dinner. Well, you got 19 different nationalities. It was so much fun listening to these kids tell what their mom and dads are going to cook, and all the kids were really interested. You're cooking that? Oh, that sounds good. So with that, I think the immersion program is good. I think it's based on how many people want to be a part of that program. When setting a master schedule in a school, it's probably one of the toughest things to do, because you've got to be able to get in as much as you can, but still you have a limited number of teachers. So as long as there's interest, we should continue to grow it or keep it the same, depending on the interest. But I think kids enjoy learning about other cultures, and especially in my middle school class, I had so much fun that day. I went home and told my wife and kids, and they're like, "They're doing what? Yeah, they're cooking this and that." It was so interesting. So as long as there's interest and you can fit it in the master schedule and grow it, let's do it.
Mr. Brower.
I'm a big fan of the dual language immersion program. I have a second grader who's in it, along in class with Marie's daughter. They're really good friends. I can tell you from my experience and what I've seen, some of the best teachers, elementary school teachers I have seen are teachers in that program. They really care a lot for the students. You'll see them show up at kids' birthday parties, at soccer games, dance recitals. And I think as long as there's a demand for it, we need to keep it here. I mean, we were promised, or it was sold to us all, as an outcome-based education program with a lot of benefits. And we really won't see those benefits for a few more years still. I am convinced that starting kids in a dual language program like that is going to be beneficial to anyone in that program years down the road. And it is important to learn about cultures. Every year they have a teacher from a different country and they learn, more and more about those countries. I'm fully in favor of it.
Ms. Russell.
Yes, I have a second grader in dual language immersion, and I have a third grader in dual language immersion, and he currently can read in English and in Spanish. It's amazing. I actually grew up the same way, dual language immersion my entire life. Definitely totally understand the program. I think it's extremely successful. I was ecstatic when Dare County decided to bring it here through Participate. We know it's very popular because there's a lottery, at least in some of the schools. It's extremely popular. So when you got the golden ticket to get in, you were really excited. The teachers are amazing. I can't even say anymore. I mean, we both know because we go into the classrooms. I substitute for them. I see their lesson plans. These kids are going to do great. I support it also because I know there has been some discussions about, why do some kids get it and some kids don't? Well, I think that if it grows, that we should increase the amount of teachers. It actually costs us less to have Participate teacher than it would be to have an English teacher. So I think that's something that's really important for everybody to know, because a lot of times they'll say, how come we're spending all this money on DLI program? It actually costs the county less money to have DLI. I do think it's a great program and we should keep it.
Okay, our next question is from Nancy Birondelli from Southern Shores. A new superintendent will be hired in the coming weeks. What goals and objectives would you like him or her to consider in the next 12 months? Ms. Russell.
I've kind of battled back and forth about this because I was really hoping to be able to be on the board and to be able to have some sort of voice as to who we could hire. But after speaking to some of the board members, it does make sense that we need somebody sooner than later. If we wait until December, it might be too late to find somebody who's in a good enough position to continue on with the job. Thankfully, we have Mr. Blackstock, which is fantastic. I think one of the biggest qualities of a superintendent is communication. I think that towards the end of our previous superintendent's tenure, there was a lack of communication between him and central office in general and with teachers. That's a lot of the comments that I got from the teachers were, we're not being heard. And I think the only way that you can have success in the school system is to be able to have communication between the teachers and central office, especially the superintendent. So,
Mr. Brower?
Well, I think the new superintendent, whoever they may be, the first major task he's going to have is dealing with these, the test scores and the learning loss that we've had from COVID. I would prefer to be on the board, or at least have someone on the next board who's sitting up here on the stage, at least two of us anyhow, involved in that process, because we're the people who are going to have to work with the guy or gal or whoever for 4 years. I do understand, however, the urgency that the board has as far as getting the right candidate in. But I think right now the big thing is going to be to identify the students who are off track and get with your school administrators and teachers to determine who needs help and bring in the specialists as needed to try to reverse the learning loss.
Mr. Payne?
I would agree with the other two candidates. Typically, superintendents are chosen in the spring, getting ready for the next school year. I understand we've lost a superintendent, assistant superintendents, and some directors, but this close to an election, 3 of us, Mr. Weiker's not here, will be on the board. And this close to an election, I think I expressed this opinion to one of the board members last night that they should wait, but they're not going to wait, so no need to cry over spilled milk. The superintendent needs to come up with a plan for academic achievement, how to get our kids back to where they need to be. I agree with Matt on that. Communication, you need to be a good listener. Use me as an example, if you don't mind. When I took over Northeastern High School in January, I know education. I needed to know about the school. I asked faculty and staff, tell me about your school. What's working? What do you like? What's not working? What do you don't like? So what's not working, let's work on getting rid of those things. What's working, if it's working, how can we enhance that? So the new superintendent needs to come in, listen, because good leaders are good listeners and good communicators. But once again, going back to academic achievement, we need to get our kids caught up and hope the new superintendent has a plan for that.
Ms. Ferns?
I thought at the beginning going last was better because you'd get to have a lot of ideas, but now you just sound like a broken record when you're last. So I agree. The new superintendent needs to have open lines of communication with administration so that we can bring our schools back to the place that they were. I hope that I'm with everybody. I think it's a total bummer that we're not going to get to be a part of that process, but I do understand. I hope that the new superintendent is open-minded, and I hope that the new superintendent is invested in retaining our quality teachers and helping us recruit new ones. And I hope that they are willing to work hand in hand with the board, administrators, teachers, parents on all levels so that we can clean up some of the mess and get us back where we need to be.
So the next question is from Heidi Hess from Kill Devil Hills. School nutrition is critical to how our students learn and behave. Is there anything you would like to do to improve the nutritional program at our schools? Mr. Payne.
23 years I ate in school cafeterias. And the one thing I never understood was pizza day, the vegetable was corn. Why is corn with pizza? I know there's some federal guidelines when it comes to what we serve in the cafeteria, but I did work in one school, Atlee High School in Mechanicsville, Virginia, where our cafeteria ladies actually cooked. And we couldn't wait to see what they cooked that day. I would like to take a look at our nutrition in the cafeterias and see how we can improve it. I know in West Virginia, they brought a chef in a few years ago. I cannot remember his name, and he redid the whole program. And it was fresh vegetables from local farms. We got farms real close to us. We can bring in some local produce. Let's get back to cooking, just not sticking something in the microwave or in a cooker and making it warm again. And please get rid of pizza and corn.
Ms. Ferns.
Was it me? Oh, sorry, I was making jokes. I don't think they do pizza and corn anymore. But I'm with Ron. I think that we could definitely improve. Although if you saw lunch last year and you saw lunch this year, we are improving. So that's a plus. I agree. I don't remember where we were, Marie, where we had a discussion with people that knew more about the inner workings than I had yet to know. And they kind of gave me some roadblocks when I said things like, we have all these restaurants that always, like during COVID, give away free food and things like that. Like, why don't we connect with one of them and like outsource through produce? We have all these awesome markets, and there are a lot of guidelines that kind of make that hard. So without knowing more about what we can and cannot do as far as changing the meals, I can't really say, but I would love to see more fresh produce and more cooking and less processed food in our schools. I think every parent would like to. I just don't know logistically how much regulation and stuff goes behind that. So I would like to see improvements in the lunches. I just don't know exactly how we would go about that.
Ms. Russell?
Yeah, I agree. I remember during COVID, I was substituting 5th grade, and oh my gosh, the lunches. Oh, they were serving, I can't even remember. It was something green, and nobody ate it. I looked at all the trays. I mean, nobody ate it. It was pretty rough. I went into the back to talk to the lunch ladies to ask them, who eats this food? And they said, well, first of all, during COVID, it was whatever came on the truck that day, because we all know supply issues were a problem. And then making 1,000 lunches for high school, and only having 3 or 4 people to do it. So they would have to start at 9 in the morning to get them ready for lunch, which means they were in a steamed little box served to these kids. It was pretty bad. So yes, it is definitely improved now. The kids are going through the lunch line. I see what it is. Pizza's actually from a box. It's great. The kids are happy about that. Taco Tuesday, not so much. We'll work on that. It definitely needs some improvement. I do know the barriers. I've spoken with several people about it. It's definitely a little pet project of mine that I would be really interested in seeing what's happening with it and fixing it, because I think we have a lot of resources here in the Outer Banks that we could use that are not being tapped into. And I think that just setting a menu and just going with it is not enough.
Mr. Bauer?
I don't know who knows this or not, but on Instagram, there is a page dedicated to the cafeteria food. It's put on by the students, and a lot of it's really pretty funny and pretty disgusting at the same time. And, you know, it's been 35 years since I've had a school lunch, so I can't really comment as to whether it's any better or worse than when I was in school. But I do think it is important that we stress nutrition. You know, childhood obesity is a big problem, you know, throughout the country. And I think you're going to be a better student if you're eating more healthy.
Okay, this will be the last question. It's from Jennifer James in Nags Head. Our students' mental health is of utmost importance and influences their learning and school days. Are you interested in supporting or helping to fund a school-based therapy program? Mr. Bauer.
I think I need to know a little bit about more, you know, what was in that program. I mean, I think the parents have the right to direct what their children's physical, mental, and emotional health is. I don't know that that necessarily falls within the purview of the schools. However, you know, if you see something, say something. And we do need to have the resources here to take care of kids who maybe can't talk to their parents about problems they're experiencing. That's all I really have on that.
Ms. Russell?
So the school-based therapy program, we have some really great guidance counselors in our schools that are very tapped into our students, and I hope we don't forget about them. They really do work really, really hard. I'm assuming this is more of a social-emotional learning targeted question, and again, that's another one of those buzzwords that was going around. It's been around for 30 years. It's been around a while. We started implementing it, and I think it was more during COVID times because you know, kids came back, let's say they left in second grade and they came back in fourth grade. They're still acting like second graders in fourth grade, and trust me, I've realized that substituting fourth graders, that socially and emotionally, they are just not quite there. So I was able to attend one of the SEL classes, and it was fantastic. It was really just teaching them how to breathe, how to count if they are feeling out of control. It's really just a small 20-minute class where they would color and try and just express their emotions. And I don't see anything wrong with that, because really in the end that helps the teachers, because it allows the student to not have explosive behavior during school and to be able to know how to manage it so that the teacher can then focus on 24 kids instead of just one. So I think that's important.
Ms. Ferns?
I agree with Marie. Mental health is definitely a problem in our society. So providing our children with tools to self-regulate their emotions and handle things that come their way is not a bad thing. I would love to see us put more forth things to help our kids with their mental health. I know with our new principal at First Light Elementary School and our awesome guidance counselor, they're putting together a reflection room at the school to help when kids are feeling some kind of way, to go and kind of have a time and a place to get their mind together. I think providing kids with tools to help is essential. We want them to grow into adults that can handle their big feelings. So I think that we're doing so much better than we did when I was a kid. I learned about pricklies and warm fuzzies and how to like be nice to each other. And kids are learning how to breathe through, take a minute, step back, things that I never was afforded an opportunity to learn. And I think that I could have. I like seeing my daughter come home and say things to me like, no, Mom, take a minute, breathe and blow your bubbles. And I'm like, yeah, girl, you are right. I need to do that. And then how much better do I feel? And so I think that giving them the tools to face those mental health challenges hopefully will make so we have adults that don't have mental health crises and aren't doing some of the things that we see on the news because we set them up with tools that we didn't have.
Mr. Payne.
As former principal, assistant principal, department chair, and teacher, you know the kids that need some help. And there's plenty of agencies locally that can help out parents, students. Even inside the schools, we do have great guidance counselors, and they're trained in that area. My guidance counselors at the high school were wonderful. And so we relied on them also to get help from outside agencies. I do some part-time help over at KDH Recreation Center in the afternoons for the after-school kids. They come rolling in about 3:15 till about 7, and kids are resilient. They're bouncing back. These kids come in there, they want to shoot basketball, they want to hang out with each other, and it's fun to listen to these guys talk what they're talking about. Ask them questions, they'll tell you anything, which is great if they trust you. And so I think our kids are bouncing back, but if there is a program, I think you always take a look at it to see if it can help or not.
Thank you all. Now we're going to hear the candidates' closing remarks, and we'll go in reverse order from the opening statements, which means that Marie Russell, you'll go first.
It'll be short, I promise. Thank you all for your excellent questions today. And again, thank you to the League of Women Voters in hosting this forum. I believe that the role of the Board of Education is to set up our children for success. And by voting in a nonpartisan educator and parent such as myself, I can help be a voice of reason and eliminate polarizing issues in order to make sure Dare County Schools keeps being successful. Let's all make sure that there is representation on the board for parents and educators. Thank you for your time.
Mr. Brower.
The North Carolina Constitution and state law guarantees a sound basic education. I think in Dare County, we'd all like to have something a little bit better than a sound basic education. And I'd like to ask everyone here just to think to yourselves and imagine if Dare County schools were the top-ranked school system in North Carolina, if we were even nationally ranked, what would it look like? From my point of view, it would look like this. We would have a curriculum with a primary focus on ELA, math, science, technology, and history. We wouldn't have divisive, polarizing political issues in our classroom. And, you know, quite frankly, I think the verdict's still out on social emotional learning. And I do have some questions and some doubts about that. We would have well-funded programs that encourage athletics and cultural arts. We would foster creativity, and we would reward achievement. We would graduate kids who are sound, critical thinkers. Both college-bound and non-college-bound kids would have the tools they need to develop and pursue their dreams. And frankly, I'm surprised there wasn't a question regarding that. What about the kids that don't go to college? What can we do to help them out, you know, for the Outer Banks? You know, is it trades? Is it learning commercial fishing? Is it you know, learning about the hospitality industry and having some preparation, you know, to be able to contribute here in, you know, in Dare County. We'd love to have a low teacher turnover, and Dare County schools should be one of the most desirable places to work in North Carolina. I believe that these things are within our reach, and if elected, I'll do everything I can, you know, to make these things happen. Well, thank you.
Jessica Ferns.
I just wanted to say thank you. I'm so appreciative of the opportunity to answer a question this evening. I hope that all of you were able to get to know me a little better, and I look forward to the future, and I'll see you at the polls.
Ron Payne.
Once again, thank you, everybody, for coming tonight. This has been good to hear everybody. I'm an educator, 23 years. Principal, once again, assistant principal, department chair, teacher. Been very successful. I've grown schools. as a principal, as an assistant principal, I instituted curriculums in schools to where grades increased. In 2003, when I was completing my master's degree, I wrote a paper on why effective and successful educators should be on school boards. To me, it only makes sense. You understand education, you know what works, you know what doesn't work. And once again, working in 4 different school districts, affluent, rural, urban, you find out what works and what doesn't work at each school. Not every school is the same. We have 60% free and reduced lunch, or a little bit more in Hatteras. That's not the same as First Flight. So what we do in Hatteras might be a little bit different than what we do here. I've also set policy at schools and helped set policy at the board level. In Chesterfield County, I was one of 3 teachers that sat on the superintendent's budget review committee to send the budget to the school board. Once again, help set policy. I've worked with budgets. I've grown schools. And to me, it just makes sense to have an experienced, effective, successful educator on your school board. And once again, I look forward to seeing you at the polls. Thank you.
So this concludes the Board of Education Voter Forum. We wish to thank the candidates for their participation, voters for your attendance and questions. We want to thank the Dare County Schools and Nags Head for the use of their meeting room, and to Benny Baldwin for videotaping the forum. We will post the video of this forum on our website, which is www.lwvdare.org. There will be an exam at the end of this. And our YouTube page, and on Dare County Current TV. And for information on the times, please check their schedule. I'll now turn the meeting back to Lorelei, who is our coordinator.
Now you can applaud. I really appreciate so many of you being here tonight. I have a few things to remind you about before we conclude this forum. This year and every year, we ask these candidates to participate in our vote411.org online one-stop shop website. There you can get all kinds of information about where to vote, how to vote, and specifically, there's questions posed to these participants, and I'm very pleased to tell you that all 4 of them have participated and answered their invitations to participate. So you can learn some more about them there. All you have to do is key in your address and get a lot of information about your ballot, see who's on it, see what they think, their philosophy, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Please check it out. And another program we have coming up next month, you might find interesting. It's called After the Gavel, Women's Reproductive Health Options in North Carolina. We're going to have panelists from the health professionals. Dare County Department of Health is participating, as well as some other representatives. It's a free, open, free to the public program. It's going to be on November 3rd, 7 p.m. at Jeanette's Pier. So what could you, that's pretty cool, right? You still can register to vote at our one-stop early voting sites. There are 3 of them this year in Dare County. You just have to bring good ID. You can register and vote at the same spot. Absentee voting ballots may still be requested now until November the 1st, and guess what? We have some forms over there if you need them. They have to be returned to the Board of Elections by November 8th, Election Day. Early voting, wow, begins next week. October the 20th, it runs until Saturday, November 5th in 3 locations, in Manio, the Admin Building, Kill Devil Hills Town Hall, and Fessenden Center Annex in Hatteras. Of course, Election Day is Tuesday, November the 8th, and I'm sure you're all going to vote, right? Right? And if you need all those dates, all that information is on those cards, and guess what? They're over there on the information table. We encourage you to join us as we strive to make democracy work, so we also have applications to join the League of Women Voters over there. And we thank you all for coming tonight.